I had two of the most lovely comments today, which I'm going to share with you guys here up on screen. I'll keep them private, anonymous, obviously, but it was really heartening for me because I started doing this work obviously for myself, and as I've progressed in my learning, and I think all of you will find this as is healing, you go through things that you'll want to reach out and help other people because you don't like to see other people suffering the way you did, and you know how bad it was, and you know how little understanding there is around it for other people. So, my goal has always been to try and bring some truth and to bring real, honest truth to it. And sometimes that's dark because narcissistic abuse, the outcomes of it are really dark. They're really dark. They're incredibly debilitating and they mess somebody up for a very, very long time. Like years, 10 years, 15 years. It could be somebody's whole life. So, in doing my research and understanding myself and then mapping my collapse by my self education on object relations, mainly focusing through Fairbairn's libidinal and anti libidinal positions in conjunction with the central ego, which is about relationships with tension, frustration. That's what Fairbairn made this for, was to understand how the ego splits whenever there is tension and frustration in a relationship. So it's a perfect model to look at narcissistic abuse. And for us to sit down and do the work correctly, we have to know what we're looking at. We have to be able to see the picture properly. And this is the problem with narcissistic abuse because there's so much misinformation, so many people dying to be heard. And I understand people trying to be heard and putting stuff out and so on. But inevitably, it ends up being the wrong information. And it's not because they're not capable of learning, it's just because social media is full of shit. And I'm just going to say it, it really is dreadful. The very biggest narcissistic abuse educator, content creators online talk complete and utter nonsense. They just do. They keep you libidinally tied into a relationship that makes you feel that somehow there was something there whenever there wasn't anything there. And this is the realization we must come to. We were a service. The relationship is utilitarian. It's transactional. We don't exist to them. And I know that's hard to hear. We're a phantasm. We're an actor, a bit part player in an internal world. So what happens whenever we enter into these relationships? Well, we enter in with this libidinal pull of want, of desire and connection and attachment and love and hope. It looks like we're meeting somebody with the same pulls, but their pulls is toward grandiosity and superiority and owning objects. Presents in such a way that we create a false self, a pseudo false self, a false self protector. Okay, and it gets animated in the relationship by these pulls and pushes that are going on within us and within the narcissist, because we are now starting to co-idealize each other, which means we're now starting to merge their false self to our ego, just as much as they're merging our false self to their false self. It's a complete paracosm. It's a fantasy. And we keep animating this vortex of cathexis, all this idealization, and it regresses us down into our childhood ego because they show us parts of their wounded childhood ego, and we start regressing down. And the next thing you know, it's a dual mothership, and by de facto, we're each other's children. And whenever the devaluation cycles and then the re-idealization cycles, which is really discarding and hoovering, that happens in the relationship the whole way through until we are fully depleted, fully colonized. We have fully disassociated away from the self. The true self, whenever there was object acquisition that happened in the idealization phase, stood out of the way and is standing outside banging on the windows wanting you to fucking listen and say, this isn't real. This is a fantasy now in your head that's been transferred to you. So when the discard happens and they hand over the bad object, the persecutory object that was once the idealized object that represents you inside of them, whenever they hand that over with the cold, cruel discard and the triangulation with other people and then the leaving of the pathological narcissistic space, because we get kicked out of what made our identity, all the people and all the stuff that was involved in the relationship. And all of a sudden we're the pariah, we're isolated and we're on our own. And you know what's happening? The false self that we created collapses, because the false self that we created was built in strict, narcissistic, rigid terms, and therefore our false self has a narcissistic structure, except it's inverted. We're not outwardly grandiose, we're inwardly grandiose over the self. We're inwardly superior over the self. We're shaming and hating the self. And what is happening is that our libidinal and anti-libidinal ego positions have been flipped. They've been taken over. They've been inverted. The false self belonging to the narcissist, which is grandiose and superior, has taken over our libidinal ego position. All the ideals lying here, all the bits and pieces of ourself that we have pushed down in favour of the externalized bad object that we've idealized is in here, and they are being dominated. And in our anti-libidinal position, their own internal maternal split that they couldn't resolve has been now passed into us via things like projective identification, and that has landed into our anti-libidinal ego position. So this now means that we have been co-opted. The interjects have now co-opted our whole ego position. Our central ego has been blocked out because the truth self stepped out of the arena a long, long time ago. And we have to accept that. That us, the person who's now watching this in pain, who gets through the odd time to see it and feels it, and then we go back into the cycle of, oh no, well it must be, oh no, I must be mad, oh I'm awful, I'm unlovable, I'm the terrible person, they're perfect, blah blah blah. This is the cycle that you get put into because you've been put into a split. And if you're in a split, there's only two ways to live. It's either idealize or devalue. I can't say this loud enough. The script and the story and the stuff that is running through your head does not belong to you. It belongs to the narcissist. It belongs to the narcissist. You are living out a fantasy in your brain that is totally and utterly tied to another person's internal fantasy, and you have taken it on as your own. And the only way out of this is to reverse the inversion, which means you need to meet the omnipotent denial with an equal amount, if not more, force, which means you've got to deny. You've got to deny their presence and bring forward yours. The truth self wants to be heard. It just takes time because bringing in the pain, it hurts. Keep doing this work. I'm so proud of you. Honestly, you have no idea how proud I am today because it means something to me to see people heal. Thank you. Keep working hard. Peace out.